be talking to all of you in some weird way that I get no feedback in the usual laughter. So I'll assume you're all finding me amusing or something. This is a talk I've been wanting to give for a while, since a lot of my work is now in the help two companies make a, merge together, kind of like a version of agar.io that doesn't freeze as much and there's money involved. So this is what I've been doing for the last couple of months. It would help if I could twitch through. Okay, who am I? I'm sure you've all seen this slide before. I am now the mergers and acquisition practice lead for my employer, Leviathan Security. I also do a lot of GRC and strategy work outside of that. I'm also a lawyer. I've got a new disclaimer now. This is not investment nor tax advice. It's not legal advice. And I don't get to see a lot outside of my bento box. So don't ask me for, like, is this a good idea to invest my money? Because I still hold pets.com stock. Still to this day. I mean, because they're eventually going to turn it around. So an overview of why do we have mergers and acquisitions. Imagine you're a startup, you're 35 people, you've got a good idea, and it's not as good as you thought it was. Sometimes selling out is better than remaining independent. You aren't growing. You aren't getting the traction you wanted in the market. Or your big new product is just taking longer and costing more money to finally get it ready. So you need more runway. You need more money to finally go and take on the market, and you're just not getting it. Your existing investors aren't interested. And from the buyer side, sometimes there are assets within a company that are more valuable not in that company. A customer list, a brand, a code base, a product. A lot of times you'll see these smaller startups where they'll start with we're going to go revolutionize this industry, and it gets narrower and narrower and narrower until you go, that's a really good tool for an edge case. And someone who's in the business similar to yours that's much larger may say, that's a great tool within our suite of products. So you may get an offer from them saying, we would like to buy your company because that tool would be really cool to have. Sometimes it's an acqui-hire. You have a talented team of people that you want to buy. You want to acquire the whole team and say, you could do great things. So that's why there's a market. It's not just people going out of business. It might be existing companies that someone says, hey, you would be more valuable as a part of us. So valuation. This is where you're finally coming to the idea of, I would like to buy your company, or we would like to sell our company. What's the value? What's the price? And that's a little bit outside of the work I do, since my thin niche of that is basically saying, here's where your baby's ugly. Here's where the price is a little too high. I think of myself as like a housing inspector. You may love the house. It's great. It's got great light. It's got great bones, whatever that means. The school district isn't, voted most dangerous in the county for 5 years in a row. My job's to come in and go, well, the foundation's also damaged. Well, you probably want to replace the electrical system because the existing stuff is dangerous. So let's take some money off the table to remediate those problems. So due diligence. Multiple teams come in looking at the deal and say, let's ask questions about the company to find out what the buyer is actually getting. There are financial ones. They're going to go look over the books. There are teams of accountants who are going to make sure that every time you say you've made a sale, you actually made that sale. There'll be people who go over your assets. You have real estate. You have patent rights. You have copyrights. Is that worth what you say it is? Is that worth that much to us? Can you actually say you own that thing? So they crawl over that. And then a part of due diligence is this undiscovered or undisclosed risks. Are there problems with your company that don't appear on the balance sheet? This is the category of where I live. Some examples: litigation risks, right? Um, your product may have infringed on somebody else's patent. Your customers, some of them may love you, some of them may hate you so much they've sued you. Or you may have done something stupid and thus justified some kind of litigation. Your products actually kill some people. Well, that's bad. Um, More importantly to us in cybersecurity is breach and privacy risks. Is there a unknown breach risk? Like, consider when Verizon bought Yahoo and Yahoo failed to disclose some fairly large breaches along the way. Well, that's something nice to know if you're the buying company, to go, I'm getting these things. Am I also getting something that has negative value, like an undiscovered breach? Or we're starting to see where there are privacy risks. Have you gathered too much information unlawfully that is going to make you look like a schmuck a couple of years from now if once it gets out, right? Your company has a certain amount of value. If it appears on Krebs, amazingly enough, it's worth less. I wonder why. So, product risks. These are if you're thinking of like a software company, a SaaS company, or platform company, you've got the stuff you're buying isn't just the trademark, it's this actual massive code that makes it run. Is that code worse than you expected? You know, is it vulnerable? Is it crufty? Is it a bunch of tech debt in a box that you're going to have to clean up once you buy it if you want to continue operating stuff? Are there missing controls in your infrastructure that you're worried about, right? Uh, are there things that you're expected to have that you don't, like a SIM, like maybe vulnerability management? Maybe your infra is not up to snuff. And is it going to be really hard to fix all this stuff? Therefore, expensive. Therefore, does that take some money off the valuation when you actually go to sign a deal? So, tech debt. I like to think of it as, remember that temporary workaround that's 8 years old? Um, Now you rely on it. There are people who actually are writing code that uses that because it works better now. That workaround you kludged in there is now a part of your life. And if you fix anything, you're going to break their stuff. Everyone has deferred maintenance, right? Out of support hardware or operating systems in your production environment. Um, that happens. It's when your entire production infrastructure is running on obsolete operating systems. And when you go, well, why don't you patch these and bring them up? It's like, well, that breaks the application. Oh, so you've got to rip out a bunch of stuff. Or a lot of times I see this where it's not patched, not only because you didn't have the time, is that you don't even have the orchestration to do it. The number of clients I've seen where, how do you do patches? And it's, when I have time, I run patch. I click through software update. Like, no orchestration, no push out a patch, test, run. No, if I have time, I do it. So I like to think of those guys as, we patch once a year, whether we need to or not. Missing parts. I think of a particular client of ours who, when I asked about a SIM, they explained that they had a budget for that SIM. And that it's like, well, when was that? Well, that was 2 years ago. It's like, well, what happened? And instead, they bought something for trade shows. And that is not actually a picture of it. I could not get a picture of it because that would disclose who the client was. But all I can describe it was a large SUV with a bump and stereo. And the return of investment for a bump and stereo on a cool ride, that's instant. The SIM does not pay off as well until you needed it. So, on the buy side, you are the people buying another company. You want to know what you're getting. So you're looking for discounts and deal stoppers. Discounts, right? You're just looking for, is there something that we're going to have to fix to make this operational that we take off the sale, because we're going to have to use that money to instead fix that problem, right? Stuff you have to put in place to meet some minimal standards for that industry. Are you going to have to hire people because you don't have anyone doing that work? Do you have to go through your existing code base and refactor it because you're using no longer supported languages or no longer supported operating systems or something like that, where you just have to fix the old stuff? Do you have existing breach or liability offsets that you have to pay for? Right? You've got um, you've got a litigation risk, and you know you're going to get sued. Your lawyers say it's going to be between a $6 and an $8 million payoff. Well, you take that off the sale price. And then integration costs. If this is a purchase that you hope to merge with your existing company because you want what they've got, well, if they're a pile of kludge, it's going to be really hard to integrate that with your hopefully better stuff. So that just is a discount, right? You've gone to the car dealership and you said, I want that car. Kelly Blue Book puts it at $11,000, but I need new tires and I need this, so I'll pay you 10. Fine. The deal's still going to happen. You're just paying a little less. Then you've got deal stoppers, where the the people on the buy side want to say, wait a minute, we need to reconsider even making this transaction. Examples I've seen in this space are code, our core capabilities, they're vaporware. The capabilities that are in your marketing materials don't actually work. I'm sure no one has ever seen that before in this space. Or you have significant liabilities that you haven't disclosed or haven't even found. So how do we find this stuff? Testing. The number of times we've just sent a couple pen testers at their infra to go find things. What's wrong there, right? Take the code base and shove it through some static review tool. Do a pen test from the outside if we've got time. I hate to say something nice about a competitor, but NCC's Scout Suite is a brilliant tool for finding out what did you do wrong in your cloud infra. And I'm not recommending these as gotchas. I'm recommending if you run a tool against your code base or your public facing infrastructure or your cloud infra and you're finding repeated problems, that gives us ideas about other things. The analogy I like to use is you go to a restaurant and the bathroom's dirty. Well, I can't go into the kitchen, but if I see that you're not keeping the bathroom clean, there probably are bigger problems. And since I only have a week to look at this stuff, I want to look where I can find dirt and extrapolate that if you didn't fix this and I can find it, there's other stuff hidden. So what else am I doing? Or our team's doing? You're doing documentation reviews. I want to see what your architecture looks like. What's your bug backlog look like? How quickly do you clear it? How quickly do you identify problems? Right? If you've got a small backlog, but we found bugs, means that your ability to find stuff is broken or lacking. And I would like to question why. Look at existing incidents. Did you learn anything from that past incident, right? You got popped 3 years ago. Did you learn from that? Did you update your incident response? Did you put some defenses in place? What are you doing? And that gets us a holistic idea of what you are as a company. And then the final bit is we play being the Bobs from Office Space. I talk to your infra people, I talk to your devs, I talk to your compliance people, I talk to your sales people. I learn about your market, I learn about how you produce the goods and services. I learn how you do things, and I find out if you have the ability to find new risks in your environment. Maybe you don't. And I get a sense of also your management team. Do these people know what they're doing? And sometimes those are recommendations back to the buyers to say, when we're done, this is what you're going to get. If that's still something you're interested in, you know, we're signing off on what we found. This is what it's going to cost to fix, and we have some impressions. So what do we find? If the target company is as mature and well together as we'd expect, nobody's close to perfect, and that's okay. I don't expect to find really, really mature aspects in a 50-person company that's 3 years old, right? There are going to things you're missing. That's fine. That's expected. I might still recommend that they fix that and that offsets your cost, but I'm not horrified. If you're a 5,000 person shop in a regulated environment and you're missing core things, that's another category. But I'm really curious about, does this make sense? Did you know what you were doing? If there's a problem, sometimes I've walked into places and I see like things you should have aren't there. That makes us dig further, because why didn't you think of doing that? Why don't you have a sim? Why can't you do alerting? Sometimes I've seen tons of tech debt. There is nothing like finding out your core application runs in cold fusion. And I think, wow, you'd hire more devs, but they're all dead. Potential breaches. Is there something that says you are so incapable of finding an event that someone could have popped you, taken what they wanted, and left and just gone, right? Are they still there? But you have no ability to detect it unless something goes down, or until Visa calls you up and says, we're seeing a lot of fraud by people who used your store. And then sometimes there's really big problems that want us to make you question the deal entirely. That you only moved the headstones, you didn't move the bodies. So arguing over findings, that's the next step. Once we find everything, we want to go and identify to write them up in a coherent doc and go back to everyone involved and say, this is what we found, this is what we think you should do, this is what it's going to cost to fix, handle appropriately, right? How much is it going to cost to fix? What's the impact if you don't? How would we order them? How would we prioritize these things? Because we know that you're probably not going to immediately fix everything. You're going to fix what you have to do and continue on in the business. Discussing with the deal team, right? We're going to answer questions so they understand what it is wrong with the company we're buying, or they're buying, really. And then post sale. Usually afterwards, the purchase occurs and the new acquisition is saying, how do we fix the problems you identified? And we'll try to give them some useful advice and keep on going. So I realize that none of this ever makes sense unless you do it as hypotheticals. So we have a client. The target is an online lifestyle fashion seller. So they sell jewelry, accessories, clothing, high-end, hippie-esque, expensive. Got a very strong social media presence. They're on the gram. They've got influencers. A lot of really lush pictures of people enjoying themselves outside. Um, Very political, social bent. They're pushing a lifestyle. Good for them. They've got a very premium sales model. High touch, high margin. They know your name when you call. They would really like you to remain a customer of theirs. That's the company. We go and we go and take a look at them, and their sales organization's great. Their infra is a mess. It's amateur hour. They're doing everything wrong with PCI. Everything's in one database that's world accessible, or at least not, not all the rules you're expecting to see out of a PCI, PCI SAC-D. They're holding credit card numbers in plain text, like all the things that make everyone in our industry cringe. And there is what I like to think of as a high delta between the truth and reality here. They're doing a lot of things wrong, but all the documentation they're kicking to their credit card processors is everything's fine. Please go away. So what do we do? What could they have done better before we showed up? Because we took a fair amount of money off the table for that sale. Do a quick look around. Do a pre-audit audit. Hire somebody. Bring somebody in who isn't you, just to say, what would you fix here? That's usually a cheap consulting engagement, less than $10,000. If you have documentation you needed, do it now before you're really in the market, because there's nothing like seeing documentation that was done literally the night before. Everybody knows that the time to do homework is on the bus on the way to school, not here. Do the cheap stuff, right? Run your patch. Just make sure your systems are up to date. Make sure basic scans are fine stuff, like run Nmap against your external network. Right? You know, stuff your code through a static analyzer and fix something. Because everything we can ding you on is price taken off, and we're going to bump up that cost because we're trying to find as much money to take off the table to justify our existence. Show improvement. Show that you as an organization can find and fix your own things, and that it doesn't take the fear of an audit or an assessment or due diligence to force you to clean these things up, right? So put your stuff in a backlog and then show that you're cleaning up the backlog. Make it seem like you're more of an adult than you actually are. So second hypothetical is an actual deal stopper. Target companies in advertising technology. They're a small Eastern European shop that does some kind of, we do better big data against against the cookies we've sucked off of your browser, some magic, some hand waving, but they claim that they can more effectively go from view to add to purchase than anyone else can. The buyer's very interested in this capability. They have been in marketing since direct mail. They're still in direct mail, but they also have an effective online. They've already got a bunch of data scientists doing this work, but they really like this little company's technology. Most of their clients are in the EU or Japan or Canada, where we actually care about privacy. So that's sort of the asterisk around their concerns. Is this other little company doing anything that's scary? And well, yes, every question we give them means more questions. They're based in Eastern Europe, but their internal policies are all in English, which is a clear red flag. Like, no one puts your internal notes in a language you don't speak. Nothing they describe actually happens. They handed us a hardening guidelines for Windows as their hardening proof that they harden systems, and we then asked, and they had no Windows systems. So, like, you have documentation that has nothing to do with you. It's like if you went through for, I need proof that you own things, and you went through all the old manuals in the back of your filing cabinet for like old pieces of technology that you bought that you've not thrown away, and handed it to people like, I didn't realize you still had this stove. Oh, that's 2 stoves ago. So everything about them felt wrong. And then we asked some more questions and find out that they're storing everything they get. They are violating GDPR. They're violating Canadian Privacy Act. This is a risk back to our buyer. And we realize, like, look, if you buy them under the GDPR, it's now 2% of your revenue, not theirs. So you have a problem. And we then talking to them when they said, well, we're really not interested in their existing customers. What we are interested in is just this technology. And we came up with an idea of like, don't buy them. Just license the technology, buy the license to the stuff that they're doing, hire some devs away, and like make it very clear that you're doing that. So you're paying that company enough money that they don't come around and do anything about it. And that way you get what you actually wanted out of this. You didn't want the company, you wanted the magic. So they got that. And we were able to help that client not have to take on all this tech debt, because these guys are doing everything wrong, but this like algorithm, this big data magic they had was actually valuable to them. That's all they wanted. So that's what I got.